Howdy y'all, welcome to Ellis Mowers. What we're going to do today is this, I want to do a standalone video about this because I know there's usually an issue with starter solenoids, trying to figure out how to diagnose it and how to fix it, and to make sure that it's not the battery. You get a lot of people online saying that, their lawn tractor needs a starter, and they're trying to sell them for cheap. Some of y'all might be like, well, if it needs a starter, try that. It's usually one of three things. If they say it's one of three things, it's either a starter solenoid, or the battery. It could just be a battery. This video, we're going to replace the starter solenoid, and I'm going to show you how to diagnose it and repair it. It's less than $15, and it takes about 15 minutes. Doesn't take really long at all. So let me show you what this is doing. And we're going to eliminate the starter first off, and we're going to eliminate the battery second off. Number one, the battery's brand new. So all you have to do is check your voltmeter on your battery. Make sure that your cables are good first off. We're going to go in here, and I'm going to grab my battery real quick, or my multimeter here. We're going to go ahead and eliminate the battery. Now, sometimes these batteries are a little picky in order for them to run, for these lawn tractors to run. Most of the time you're going to have one of these lawn and garden batteries like this. And what we're going to do, we want it to have at least 12.3 volts in it. In order for a lot of them to run, so we're going to test them at the cables. And you see we got 12.5 right there. So we're plenty good on the battery. Now the next thing we're going to do is go down here to the starter solenoid with the same multimeter. And I'm going to show you the terminal that I'm going to ping over here, and it's going to be that terminal in the back there, the one that has the red boot on it. And that's the positive terminal going from the battery to the starter solenoid. So on one lead, I'm going to put the negative end to the negative terminal on the battery. And forgive me, my multimeter is it's not on the fritz, but it's not the best. I'm going to put the other terminal right on that far side of the starter solenoid, right? So I'm going to do that. And I don't know if y'all can see that, but I have 12.55 same voltage, right? So now, what should happen is, I'm going to put it on the starter. Now when I hit the starter, I should be getting a surge of 12 volts. So this will eliminate the starter as the issue. Part breakdown on the mower. See, I'm only getting about 8 volts coming out of the solenoid. So anything less than about 12 volts is going to have a bad solenoid. And you also hear that clicking noise. So that means that something has failed in this solenoid internally. Now we'll go through the process of taking the solenoid off. We haven't confirmed that the starter's good on this but if you have a mower that is getting 12 volts to the starter and the starter's not engaging, it's likely either the starter's not grounded properly, which is highly unlikely since it's grounded right to the engine here, or it's failed internally. I don't think we have an issue here. Let me just say this much. It's very rarely the starter. It's almost always the battery or the solenoid. So we have a good battery voltage, and we're not getting enough voltage from the solenoid over to the starter. One other thing to check are your cables. Make sure they're tight. So I'm going to go back in here, and if you wiggle around and the terminals are moving, then that's an issue. That one's moving just a little bit, so I'm going to tighten it up and see if that causes anything to fix here. But the thing is, it's clicking very strongly, and so when you're hearing it click very strongly like that, it's usually not, or it's usually the solenoid. So what I do have back here is a solenoid. You can buy them from any box store. They're about $15. The Craftsman's, we're doing a Craftsman here specifically. It's a 4-pole solenoid. So you want to make sure you get a 4-pole solenoid. AutoZone is a great place to find 3-pole and 4-pole starter solenoids. If you have an MTD lawn tractor, similar to this Troy built, you can do the same diagnosis procedure. Most of the newer MTDs have the solenoid back here in the back, right back here. It's much harder to get to than some of these older Craftsmans. Now let me give you a hint. The newer Craftsmans, almost all the newer Craftsmans after about all of them after 2018, but after starting about 2011 are also MTDs. So you'll follow the same procedure as the Troy built. Now, this one, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my tools, and we're going to first take off the negative terminal of the battery. All you need is a 7/16 inch ratchet and socket and an extension for most of these. Sometimes it's a 1/2 inch. Now I've got the 7/16 right here. You just start off easy enough. I know a lot of y'all are watching this video are probably first timers and novices when it comes to lawn mowers and trying to figure out how to fix it. And so I'm going to try and show you all the steps here. So I'm just taking the negative terminal off the battery here first. I apologize for the sniffles. And what's going to help you want to do that because you don't want sparks coming out. So try and get the cable away from the battery. And then next, what we're going to do, I'll cut the video here before we get to the next part. I'm going to come on this side. I apologize for all the spider webs. I literally just pulled this thing out of the backyard to start working on. So what I'm going to do next, and I don't know if I'll be able to show you, is I'm going to get some really long extensions, and I'm going to take off the 2 terminals on the inside before we actually take off the solenoid itself. Alright, so I got a couple of long extensions. What we're going to do is we're going to reach in there. Doesn't matter what side you take it off first, but we're going to reach in there. The wobble extensions work best, especially on these Craftsman, because you can get in there pretty easily with the wobble extensions. And we're just taking, I don't know how much, well, y'all can see it, but we're just taking the nuts off. Now, my starter solenoid that I got from Lowe's did not come with the nuts for on the new solenoid, so we're going to have to retain the old ones, and hopefully they will work. And if they don't, then we'll find some new ones. But if you go to AutoZone, I bought a couple from AutoZone, and I've actually bought a couple from Ace Hardware before. They come with the nuts already on them, and so that eliminates the step. You pay a couple extra bucks, you get what you need. Alright, so there's the second nut. go. Alright, so now you just pull the terminals off. I don't know if I can get y'all a better angle to see this, but I'm just pulling the terminals out here now. They both had locking washers on them as well, so I'm going to set those aside. Now, what we're going to do is come over to this side. I've got a 7/16 inch wrench as well. These are your 2 bolts to take off. There's also, I don't know how well I can show you. Let me get you a little bit closer view. There's also 2 ground wires that go to them right there on the top. I don't know if you see them right there. We're going to take them off as well. They may be a little difficult to take off, and what we're going to do actually is we're going to take them off after we get the solenoid off, because they'll be easier to reach and easier to pull out. But sometimes you can pull them right there and be fine. So I have a wrench, and we might be able to just pull it out like so. Eliminate one of these extensions. But it's a nut on the other side as well, so and I'm holding the nut on the other side. I don't know if you can see that. You can't see that, obviously, but the screw will back out whenever you do that, hopefully. If not, you have to get some sort of wrench. It's also a 7/16 on the other side. You'll have to get that out as well. And then we're going to do the other one. Hopefully it'll come out just as easily. Oh yeah, I can probably hand crank this one. Unless your solenoid's really rusted on, then you shouldn't have to get a wrench on the other side, it looks like. So now we've got the solenoid off. I'm going to pull it over here and take off these ground terminals, which should be a lot easier to get off now that you've got the solenoid free and able to reach it a lot better. So that's what I'm doing now, pulling the ground terminals off. This solenoid's been on here a while, so if you take care of your riding mower, you shouldn't really have to worry too much about any resistance with the terminals. But you can see this solenoid is probably the original solenoid that came on it. And this solenoid is in a lot better shape. And it's not really important to, we're going to get it out of the box now, but it's not really important to know what side the grounds went on there for the 4-pole ones. They'll fit on both sides just fine because they're both ground terminals. But if you want to remember, let's see. So it looks like this one is going to go up instead of down, or instead of sideways like the other one. I don't really like this one as good as I like the one that I got from Lowe's. But it'll still work for what we need it to. I'm just popping those ground terminals back in now. And I'm just doing the reverse process basically. So I'll put the bolt in for this side. And I do this first before I put the actual positive terminals back onto the solenoid. That way you got some leverage in order to get them tight onto the solenoid. So we're just popping these back on. I'm going to hand tighten both sides first, and then Like I said, I'll hand tighten both sides first. You'll see the little hole pop in right there. You just put it through there. Put your bolt back on. And just screw the nut on the other side. The nut that I showed you a little bit earlier. So we got that. And we might be able to just tighten them by just holding them. If not, I've got a wrench. Oh no, we're good. You might have to use a 7/16 wrench, just depending on what you're working on. I think the MTDs are 3/8. But okay, so that's on. Now we're gonna go to the other side. I'm gonna grab my other extension. And what we're going to do is put these terminals back on. Again, they're at a 90-degree angle as opposed to what they were at. I don't know how well I can see that right through there. Doesn't matter which one you put on first. However, I would recommend putting on the one that's furthest into the engine first, just to make sure you can get that one. So this one's a little bit different, or this solenoid's a little bit different. It's at a, like I said, it's at a 90-degree angle as opposed to the other one. I'm sorry I'm not really able to show y'all a good view of it. It's just not the most ideal place to have it. You can remove the gas tank for better access as well. It just depends on what you want to do. I'm going to put the locking washer in there. And I lost the nut right there. So let me fish that out real quick. Remember, there's no power going to it right now, so. I've got the nut out, I just got to find it again. Right there. And you will have these slip off every once in a while, so just be careful whenever you do this. Screw it on there. And it should screw on there with no issues. You just got to get it right. The same terminals, it should screw on there just fine. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, because of the way this is oriented, is I'm going to take off. I'm just going to take off the gas tank and get it just kind of out of the way, which you can do earlier. It's really not that important too, because if you want to keep the gas tank on, you don't want to have to be kind of messing with that. But if you want to take the gas tank off, then you can do that. I'm going to get a 3/8 real quick. I'm going to take this bolt, and then there's one on the other side to take the gas tank off. Alright, so I'm taking off the gas tank here. just going to put it over on the side like that. I've got to put gas lines in this mower anyways, but that will get you better access. I was originally just going to show y'all how to get to you know, do the minimum amount possible. As you can see, it wasn't terribly difficult in order to get it earlier, but so now you can see the terminals better. And now we'll put the 7/16 back on and just pop it on. This side, you don't have to get a monstrously tight. Thing is, you don't want your positive terminal to be moving on the solenoid. So now, let's do the other one. Just remember, it's also very linear. The one going to the starter goes on to the side closest to the starter, and the one going to the battery goes on the side closest to the battery. Thankfully, this is not rocket science. So that's plenty tight. Okay. So now, all I'm going to do is pop back here, and I'll show y'all. We're going to put the battery cable back on. Okay. 7/16 again. And in theory, this thing should now crank, as opposed to it was just clicking it earlier. So let's see if I'm right or wrong. So there you go. So now it's cranking. And obviously, if your riding mower is in good order, it's going to run. This one is currently not. But the gist is the same. That's how you replace a starter solenoid on one. That's how you diagnose it and then replace it. So I just wanted to get this tutorial out there just as a straightforward thing. I know it's a common problem. I work on a bunch of riding mowers, as you can see right there, and over there. And this is probably the third or the fourth, probably the fourth one I've had to do in the past 2 months, where all it'll do is just click. Number one, make sure your battery's good. Number two, make sure your starter is not getting 12 volts whenever you turn the key. And then number three, telltale sign is that you have a good battery, the starter is not getting 12 volts, and that the solenoid is clicking strongly. It's one click, and it's a strong click. And if it's doing that, then that's likely means that you've got a starter solenoid problem. So this is a Craftsman. It's the same deal with the MTD. It's just a little bit different. If I get an MTD one in, I will do a tutorial video on it as well. I have not had to do a starter solenoid replacement on an MTD yet, thankfully, because those are a pain to get to. But I appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this tutorial. I know I probably got a lot of first-time viewers on here as well. If you like lawnmower videos, tutorials, just me going through riding mowers, push mowers, 2-cycle equipment on occasion, give the channel or hit the subscribe button on the channel. You can also follow me at Ellis Mowers 09 on Instagram and Facebook. I'll catch y'all in the next video.